So I've been really focused on this idea of purpose for many years, and there's so many beautiful models out there. And I don't really believe that there's any particular singular model that is the one. I always talk about purpose discovery being an inside-out process. However, there are some amazing frameworks out there that can help guide us in the right direction, and we can test them. In that inside-out process, we can come across a framework that someone else has developed or articulated, and then check it against our own compass and truth and see if it can add some value. And I want to share with you one of those frameworks today connected to purpose. And just listen with an open mind. Remember, I always say your life is the laboratory. That's why I call my platform the Purpose Lab. I want you to embrace this idea that it's up to you to align with your truth, but you have to be open. You have to let your life be a bit of a laboratory and experiment and taste and see what resonates and what doesn't. And I think today's concept may help a lot of you. So there is an author, a teacher, a thinker named Simon Chokoisky, and he is kind of an expert in ancient traditions and Vedic traditions from ancient India in particular. And I came across this book a few years ago, and being the Purpose Lab guy, I couldn't pass it up because look at this subtitle, The 5 Dharma Types, Vedic Wisdom for Discovering Your Purpose and Destiny. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't pass that up. Let's see what this is all about. And then I'll check it. I check it against my own compass and see how it holds up. Okay, so I'm sharing it with you today because I think it may bring some clarity to your purpose journey. So it's a really nuanced and layered and deep and rich topic. And if you're a reader, if you're an explorer and a seeker, I recommend you just get the book and go deep. But for now, I think this will give you a good introduction and a taste and even some value to begin checking this against your inner compass, okay? So basically, the concept is this. In the ancient Vedic tradition, there was this idea that we had like some prototypes, some archetypes of, in this case, there are 5 archetypes for purpose. In other words, any given human being aligns or fits into one of these 5 archetypes for what is their purpose for being here, for having incarnated here on planet Earth, okay? So what I'm going to do for you, here's the practice I want to do with us in this video, is I'm going to just walk you through a general description of each of the 5 types, feel into them, listen to them, check them against your life, and see if one of them resonates with you. And that'll give you an opportunity to reflect and then go dig a little bit deeper, okay? Now, in the book itself, he has a nice quiz that will help you identify your Dharma type. And I've done that before in my workshops and with clients. But I've also found it useful to skip the quiz and just let people intuitively check in as they learn about the 5 types and check with their own experience with the other work that they've done and see like, is this ringing true? Does this resonate for me or not? What can I get from this? Okay, so first disclaimer I want to say is that the names of the 5 Dharma types, as they're outlined here, are not to be taken literally. This is not really about a profession. This isn't like a vocational test. This is about the essence of what you bring to anything you do, regardless of your job. So you'll know what I mean in a second, because I'm about to share the first Dharma type with you, okay? So the very first Dharma type is the educator. And the main drive of the educator is to enlighten others. And case in point, this is what I mean by the title of the Dharma type does not imply a profession. Educator does not mean literally a teacher or an educator. Of course, that could be really great alignment for the educator Dharma type to be a literal educator, but I want you to think beyond that. I want you to think about an educator brings this essence of wanting to enlighten, to bring light to others in whatever they do, okay? The values that the educator Dharma type really needs to embody, seeks to embody, are compassion, wisdom, and self-control, okay? So I want you to think that anybody in any profession can embody this archetype. You could be a plumber, and on the surface, maybe it looks like you're there because you're a plumber, because you're excellent with mechanics, right? You have that kind of mechanical thinking. But the Dharma types tell us that beneath that kind of surface of who you are and what you do, there's a drive. And so you could be a plumber, to continue this example, but your purpose archetype is the educator. You want to bring light to others. Maybe you have a passion for mentoring other plumbers. Maybe you have a YouTube channel where you teach others the ins and outs. You're trying to bring light to others. Okay? So for each of these types, I just grabbed one at least brief excerpt from the book that I think captures the essence of it. And so for educator, the clip that I want to share with you is this. Like the air that gives us life, the educator gives breath to the endeavors of every type by filling them with knowledge and wisdom. So I like to think about like what's like the driving impulse behind each of these types. And for the educator, it's like to share wisdom. Like whatever I'm doing, I just have a passion for sharing wisdom, for putting it out there, for enlightening, bringing light, the light of wisdom to others. And it's interesting. So each of the Dharma types also has an element that they're associated with. And you already kind of heard this, for the educator, it's the element of air, this sense of creating space for everything. It's the world of ideas as well, which is connected to air, right? The world of ideology and philosophy and ideas. And this is a very air-oriented approach to life, right? And that's the educator, right? So feel into that. The primary aim of the educator is freedom. Freedom. So we talked about the drive is to enlighten others. The aim is a sense of freedom, right? So does that sound like you? Does that resonate? Think beyond the job. I don't care if you're an accountant. I don't care what you do. Think about the impulse behind what you do. Does that seem to align? Let's check the next one. Dharma type number 2. In no particular order, by the way. Not number 2. This is not some kind of hierarchy, but just the next one. The warrior. The warrior's impulse is to protect others. Protect others. Now, of course, there are contexts and times and cultures in history when that would mean literally, physically a warrior protecting others, right? But these days, that impulse to protect others can take many, many, many forms. It doesn't necessarily mean physically protecting. It could be advocacy. It could be nonprofit work. It could be anything charitable. It could be leadership. And in fact, warriors, according to this system, are the most natural-born leaders. It's kind of in their wiring to lead when they are aligned with some kind of purpose. And that is the warrior's primary aim, is purpose, right? The element of the warrior is fire. That probably is not surprising, right? That's probably not surprising, okay? And here's the excerpt about warriors from the book I want to share. For warriors to excel as leaders, they must inspire a palpable team spirit in the people they lead, a sense of common purpose, there's purpose again, that they not only work for, but also embody in everything they do, okay? So they're kind of like the warriors with a purpose are one of the most powerful forces there is. A warrior without a purpose or with a manipulated purpose might be one of the most dangerous forces out there, okay? So think about that. Is that the essence and the energy that you bring to life, whatever you do? Is it that warrior? Is that impulse to protect, that impulse to lead, right? Think about that. Feel into that one. Number three, the Dharma type of the merchant, whose impulse is to clothe, connect, and animate others. I found this one so interesting when I first studied this, right? That there's a Dharma type that their primary impulse, their primary drive is to kind of like be the fluid that oils the engine of the world, so to speak. Clothe, connect, and animate others. The values of the merchant are personality. The personality and magnetism becomes kind of important if this is your role, right? Charity, generosity and charity, and the energy to carry out your work. Okay? So the element for the merchants is water. There's this sense of fluidity, of adaptation and flow. And they're also kind of associated with emotion, right? There's sort of a charisma to the merchants. They're there to kind of like connect people and charm people and, move abundance. Of all the types, it's interesting. Of all the types, according to this system, they're the ones that like really are there to generate abundance, material abundance even, because they're the ones who can distribute it, right? Clothe, connect, and animate others. How do they do that? Through the flow of this form of energy, which we call money, which we call abundance, right? Interesting. Here's the excerpt from the book I want to share about the merchant. Merchants are the only type with free reign to make money for its own sake. That's what I was just sharing. By offering to help, to assist a friend or stranger without thought for reward, merchants grow their network of friends, a network that repays them 1,000 times over during their lifetime. Okay? Now, this is just an overview video, so I'm not going to get kind of into the shadow side of each type, but just briefly, one of the dangers for the merchant type is if they do accumulate this wealth, but they don't fulfill the other half of their purpose, which is to distribute it. And they kind of become like a knot, like a bottleneck in the flow, in the process, right? So it's really, really important for the merchant type to unknot and let that flow through. Find a sense of charity. Like I said, the element for the merchant is water. Their aim is enjoyment. They do want to enjoy life. They like the finer things in life. They tend to be pretty social. They're charismatic. They can entertain. They can network. Networking is actually really important for them to fulfill their purpose. It's interesting, right? Okay. Check in. Does that feel like you? Feel like someone you know? All right. Let's move on to the next one. The next Dharma type, purpose archetype, is the laborer. Their drive is to nourish and serve others. Nourish and serve others. Let's talk about their element first. The earth, right? The earth. They're grounded. You know that expression? That person's a real salt of the earth kind of person. That's what they're talking about. Really, really grounded in their 5 senses, in the physical material world. Really, of the 5 types, probably the most content with simplicity, with directness. It's kind of beautiful, right? Devotion, work, perseverance. Those are their values. Devotion. Not necessarily religious devotion, but devotion to a craft, devotion to a trade, to a mission, to an organization, right? Work, the value of work. And that perseverance, that grit is really important to the laborer. Here's the little excerpt from the book. Laborers don't need much from the world to make them happy. Loving and serving, qualities that come naturally to the laborers, are mainstays of their expression. They express love by creating and growing family, and they serve by giving the gift of their hard work. Beautiful, beautiful. And I think, personally, I've always had a hard time connecting with that kind of energy of just finding contentment in like simple, consistent labor. And before I was familiar with the Dharma types, I kind of like counted this as a strike against myself until I realized and felt into the Dharma types and realized that's because that's not the essence of my purpose. You can maybe kind of guess what my archetype is, but it doesn't happen to be the laborer. But number one, it helped me relieve a little bit of the pressure I was putting on myself, to be able to grind in that way. And it also helped me appreciate how I need to bring my gifts through the world, through the Dharma archetypes that are more resonant with me, which I'll get to in just a second. But first, I want to share the final of the 5 archetypes, which is the outsider. The outsider. Ooh. What's the impulse of the outsider? To innovate, to rebel, and to free others, right? These are kind of like these are warriors in a way, a different kind of warrior. They're here to kind of like liberate us, to bring the new wave of ideas, to bring the new paradigms into the collective. These outsiders are here to kind of depart with the old and bring in the new. And this is exciting, it's dynamic, but can also be very difficult because by definition, the current structure is not really designed to make the outsiders comfortable. That's why they're outsiders, right? So the values that can really help empower an outsider are empathy, freedom, and new advances. Embracing this sense of like bringing new advancement into the world is part of their mission. Okay. Now, here's the thing about the outsiders. They kind of call BS on all the other archetypes. They kind of see through. They kind of see through the BS when it comes to all the other archetypes. And they see the shadow side of the other archetypes. Okay. So, for example, here's the quote. Here's the quote on the outsiders. This is what the outsiders see. The laborer is blinded by earth or physicality, right? Like the laborer can get stuck in the physical world. The merchant is blinded by water, emotions, feelings, right? The warrior is blinded by fire, ambition, power, right? The educator is blinded by air, ideology, getting lost in the world of ideas, okay? Whereas the outsiders are kind of unfettered. They're free to see things as they are, provided that they have a permanent fixed star by which to get their bearings. And this is the danger for the outsiders, is to slip into this sort of nihilism, this sort of ultimate relativism where nothing has meaning, nothing is worthwhile. So let's just party it up while we're here, right? This is kind of the shadow side of the outsider because they can kind of see through, they can see through the current model, the current ways of the world. They seem shallow, they seem superficial, right? It's from one lens, they certainly are. But now there's a big decision for the outsider to make. Do you try to bring in something more empowering, more beautiful to the world? Or you just say like, this is how the world is. Nothing means nothing. Nothing means anything. Let's just party it up. And, kind of a hedonism. So this is the dangerous slippery slope for the outsider. The element for the outsider is space, because they kind of see through sort of the limitations of the current world. They have this opportunity to create a sense of spaciousness, to show us what's possible out here on the horizon, And what's their primary aim? Their primary aim is freedom. It's bliss. This is where they want to get to. And in their highest form, I think this is where they're trying to get all of us to, right? So that was an overview. That was a little overview of the 5 Dharma archetypes connected to purpose. Now, I hope you found this helpful by reflecting intuitively on the 5 archetypes that I just described. Maybe you can tune in a little bit to your current life. Like if you decided that one of these archetypes feels most resonant for you, then reflect on your current life and ask yourself, how much of that am I bringing to and through what I do in the world? It could be an opportunity for some deep reflection and appreciation. Like I said, just to share a little bit more on my personal. So I used to really beat myself up about, this fact that I love new ideas. I love philosophical concepts and reflecting on how they could really transform how we walk in the world, how we perceive the world. I love thinking way, 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 way out there and then bringing those ideas back in. And I'm not so good at the grind. I'm not so good at what I described as the laborer's path of purpose, which is that consistency, resilience, loyalty. And when I studied the Dharma types, I was able to acknowledge and recognize and release that it's okay. I'm not a laborer. My respect for laborers went way, way up, and my respect for myself went way up because I realized, and actually, full transparency, when I take the quiz and when I reflect, I'm stuck somewhere between the educator and the outsider. I think you can probably see the educator impulse in me. It's why I'm sitting here making these videos. But there's also a lot of outsider in me. And I kind of use those two as filters for myself to think about, when I'm feeling stuck, when life starts to feel really, really heavy, what I've noticed is it's because I'm really starting to stray from my archetypes. I'm really starting to stray from this mission of the educator to enlighten, or this mission of the outsider to kind of liberate and free others. Okay? So I hope you can find the same clarity in the Dharma types that I did. Let me know if you want more on this. Okay. Again, I recommend the book. If this kind of really piqued your interest, you can go a lot deeper. There's some amazing nuanced stuff here, lots of ideas, practices, things like this. But let me know what you think about this concept.